Hello and welcome back, consumers. This is Eltari, the professional gamer, and today we have part 2 of our PvP series known as Fight Club. And just yesterday, the developers posted a request for feedback on PvP. I figured, what the heck? What better time to post our PvP video than now to give some constructive feedback on PvP, and that is what this video is. So for today, we have a couple of different fights. You can see that we have a little bit of a naked brawl going on right now, and this was all thanks to a amazing clan agreeing to meet up with the Golden Company and fight. That is the regulators. Thanks to all of you for coming out and testing a lot of the PvP, and that's what we did. So in this first fight, we have a 1v1, and you can see that the current kind of meta in PvP, it seems, is to just be swapping back and forth between all of the different weapons that you have available to you. Now, this doesn't seem like a very realistic thing, and you could even see right there was a little bit of some latency that went on, or some delay or lag, and I was actually able to get a hit off that didn't look like it should have been possible. But in terms of the realism of these fights, which I feel like is something that Mainframe is definitely targeting, it doesn't feel altogether too close to that yet. And my thoughts on it are simply that it doesn't really make sense for us as players to just be swapping constantly between all of the different weapons so that we can use one skill on all of those things. I don't know if that means there needs to be a little bit more of a redesign, or maybe there's going to be more skills available in the game. But I think what this is an indication of is that players want to be able to use skills rather than just left clicking. I think that's something that Mainframe already knows and understands, but I'll just reiterate it here. But one of the things that I really liked about this 1v1, and this might be a off take here, is the time to kill was so long. This entire fight lasted for just shy of 2 or 3 minutes. And what we'll see in the end of this video or throughout the rest of it, a lot of these fights with multiple people don't last altogether that long. But the 1 versus 1, the 2 players going up against each other, the time to kill seems to be really, really well mapped out. And I personally enjoyed it. There were a lot of different times where my sparring partner and I were really batting back and forth, and unfortunately I met my untimely demise. But next up, we have a set here of 4v4, and this is a little bit more of a intense group engagement. And I think a lot of the time to kill that I was just talking about goes away when you have more than one player, because players are able to focus an individual as opposed to just 1v1ing each other times 4. And that is, again, very, very interesting. Now, at the very start of this fight, I thought it was really, really unfortunate, because all I had to do is run in there with 1 shield bash and half of their team was stunned. And then I followed it up with a maul and a 2-handed mace, and that pretty much ended their team before they even had the ability to fight. And that, I don't think, is something that feels really good. Another thing that kind of came out as well was a little bit of the rubber banding, and you can see that right here. And I feel like a lot of these are things that are going to be addressed, so I'm not altogether too concerned about it. And this goes without saying that in general, at this event, we had over 15 players participating in various duels, from solo, 1v1s to pretty large group fights, and they were all pretty fun and engaging. But for the sake of just giving straight feedback, I figured this would be really, really useful. Now, this last fight is one where we wanted to kind of demonstrate, what does it look like when you are outnumbered, and how can that fight kind of play out. This particular fight, unfortunately, seemed to have a lot of that delay, lag, or whatever it is, where players are teleporting around. And we actually think we found out why that is and made a F8 report for it. But if any devs are listening, we think it has something to do when you are in an animation lock. It doesn't update the location of players if you're hitting them, or it has something to do with that, because right after we initiate an animation for like a special or something like that, the player will suddenly teleport to a new location that they weren't previously. And you'll see that happen a couple of times in this particular fight as well. And it's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, I think I benefited, as I was dancing around these two players for quite a long time. And that is something that I very much so look forward to when there are different weight classes in the game. But one of the things that I noticed in this fight as well is that stamina was not an issue whatsoever. I was pretty much plucking away with a very low amount of stamina, and all of the enemies were just as easily able to kind of manage their stamina economy. And there wasn't altogether too much when it came to them not being able to fight. Now, I think that we have a pretty good example here where we were fighting and using a lot more block and give and take. One thing that we did find out is that it seems like you do get a free attack if you are to block an enemy and stagger them. And that is where a lot of this stamina economy also came in as well, which was something that is a welcome sight to see. However, I don't think a lot of players are very aware of that type of mechanic. And there's really a couple of things that I feel like are missing, like being able to block cancel to try and bait players into attacking or blocking. I think that when you put up your block, maybe it should require some kind of stamina cost or something like that, so that you can't just constantly be running around with your shield out and being able to block enemy players. But all of that being said, I think all of these fights were quite rewarding in one way or another, and the PvP status in game definitely needs to be worked on, especially if Mainframe is looking to expand fights from small engagements of 8 players to something much larger with 20 plus players engaging one another, or 50 plus, or even 100 plus players. There cannot be that teleporting going around, and it really breaks the immersion, but more importantly, it breaks the combat. And if you're trying to locate where the enemy is, you can't just be scattered around doing a weird teleportation as someone's trying to attack you. It really breaks the combat action and makes it feel a lot more disruptive. So I think that there's definitely some areas to improve, but in general, I think the consensus of our over 15 players who showed up to this PvP event all thoroughly enjoyed the combat and the opportunity to actually fight one another. And the great benefit here was that because it was a friendly and amicable engagement, we were able to get many, many, many repetitions of that. I think it's very unfortunate that Lyonesse right now is pretty much almost a dead man's land, because most players are just going there to collect ore and aren't trying to farm one another. Unfortunately, we didn't get to capture what happened directly after our PvP event. 2 unfortunate players decided to come after one of ours that was out mining away from where the group was PvPing and practicing, and they ended up getting led directly to us, which then started a 5-minute long pursuit. That also leads me to one last feedback or criticism on the current state of combat, which is there is no real beneficial way of being able to catch players as they are running. We literally chase someone for about 5 to 10 minutes, and there was nothing we could do. Even though we got multiple shield bashes, we caught them on multiple angles, they were just able to get away because there's no differences in movement speed or anything like that. And that was very, very frustrating. We literally chased someone for an entire map, and of the 2 players, only one ended up dying, and it was because they fell from too far of a distance and ended up perishing that way. So I think there's a lot more that can be improved in for PvP in Pax Dei. And Mainframe, if you're listening to this, I fully enjoy doing PvP and testing these things out, but I would implore you to consider adding a feature into the game that allows players to test these PvP features in places that are more like the home valleys. Enabling some kind of dueling mechanism or something like that is going to get you a lot more easy feedback. Events like this are things that I fortunately have the privilege to kind of put on, and I have the sway in the community to be able to do these types of things, but that's not something that every player has the privilege or the opportunity to do. So please do consider adding some kind of dueling mechanic or something like that where players can engage in this combat and test it out for you in a more easily attainable manner. And I think you'll get a lot more beneficial feedback, especially when there's bugs like this animation glitch that will not update an enemy player's location until after you've finished an animation or whatever's going on there. So thanks again, everyone, for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed watching some of this combat footage, and we will have many more of these to come. It was quite a fun event. And if you enjoy this, we have a lot of other videos coming out, and we would greatly appreciate it if you like this video, subscribe so that you can be notified whenever our other videos come out, and share this video with any of your friends who might be interested in learning more about PvP. All right, until next time, I'm Altari, the Professional Gamer.